Imagine you see me at West Croydon bus station at 4 p.m. on a Friday. What am I wearing? How's my hair styled? What does that say about me? Remember your thoughts. As I've navigated my way through the professional world, I've come to realize that judgment is passed in many forms. Not just through words or actions, but often through a single glance. I think many women here will understand the challenges that we face in the workforce, whether it's being perceived as too inexperienced or too bold to attempt to break glass ceilings. For some of us, there's the added barrier of race. Before I am seen as a woman, I am often perceived as a black woman, and this shapes every interaction and opportunity that I will have in the workforce. Since these challenges are obviously not enough for me, when I add that I'm from the lovely borough of Croydon, the looks seem to change from judgy to pity. Poor old me, from poor old Croydon. The stigma attached to our borough, labelled the most violent in London with over 10,000 violent incidents reported in 2023, only intensifies that judgment. And don't get me wrong, I'll admit that I've often felt embarrassed or worried about my Croydon roots, worried about how others will perceive me. The stereotypes associated with my hometown can lead to assumptions that overshadow my professional aspirations, and this can be hard for me to challenge as a black woman coming from Croydon or anywhere else in the country. Research from Manchester and Lancaster University in 2021 found that professional black women face a concrete ceiling due to intersectional barriers such as racism, sexism, and classism, and these require exceptional effort to overcome. So as a young black woman like myself, I realized the necessity to challenge these head on. Therefore, instead of trying to assimilate or fit into the status quo of what a professional should be or look like, I've made it my mission to be different. To not fit in or be who's expected to be in the fields or situations. Creating more representation and changing any barrier requires action. If we simply expect society to change for us, that is all we would have ever done. We have to force it to change. We have to drive it. We have to be the change makers. So how does this make me feel as a woman entering the world? It's undeniably daunting. I think the first time that I felt truly invisible was at a Privy Council talk about Caribbean law cases. Surrounded by established white men, I felt out of place and unseen. And this underscored a lack of representation and a dynamic that needed to change, a dynamic that's prevalent across the professional world. For example, the new government has 263 female MPs, with 50 of these being ethnic minorities. And this is the highest percentage that it has ever been. However, this also means that 50 ethnic MPs have to represent 5.5 million women across England and Wales. It seems that we're still years behind that same force of change. Let's go back to my example. The demographic of men in this room was particularly interesting. The context of the event was about the impact of the law on people like me, but the representatives and people in charge of the case seemed to have no affiliation to the Caribbean at all. I felt like the anomaly. There was no representation or figure for me to aspire to. Why did I feel so isolated in a forum whose sole purpose was to discuss the impact of the law on people like me? Think back to the image of me at West Croydon bus station. Does she belong in a place like this? Have you ever felt obviously different when you've walked into a room? These feelings of imposter syndrome and an overwhelming loneliness are a constant phenomenon in my life as a black woman. In every area that I go to, I tend to look around to see if there's anyone that looks like myself, and it's often a low proportion. And this isn't only applicable in areas or locations, nor is it only experienced by myself. In fact, according to research from the Lean In organization, 54% of black women in workplace scenarios or meetings are often the only ones of their race or ethnicity in the room. And this means that this overt difference leads them to feel overly watched, or as if their actions reflect positively or negatively on the people that look like them. exacerbating that initial feeling of being ostracized. Code switching. That is a term that describes when someone changes their behavior, speech, or appearance to put others at ease. It is an act that is prevalent in the Black community, especially when working in primarily white environments, because we are often seen as other, and thus must comfort the norm. Many of you may not have heard of this term, but for people like me, it's something that we have to consider when ensuring our professional demeanor and integrity. It's something that can determine the extent and success of our careers. We cannot afford to be associated with any historically demeaning stereotypes because they're not just labels, they're sentences. So how have I personally navigated my way through the professional world? I was only acknowledged and able to join the conversation due to the intervention of a male. He was unaware that his privilege made him a gatekeeper to me accessing those same opportunities. Between our dynamic, he was one with status and power to others in the room, which meant that he would be the one to dictate whether I was also seen. How can any woman take up space or mark her presence when she feels that a man has to do this for her first? But what could I do? Without recognition from someone who belonged, I could not force myself to occupy a space that I had every right to be in. In terms of knowledge and discourse, I could contribute massively to the discussion. But when you add in stereotypes about my race, I risked to be labelled as an angry Black woman forcing herself to be heard. Even if people did not think this about me, society has steeled me to be this way. Arguably, in these situations, I could have chose to blend in, but I would have simply been perpetuating the patriarchy, denying my own sense of self. I would have been a woman who chose to shrink away and let the men dominate and manage the conversation. So instead, I made the conscious effort to approach other women. Together, we were empowered, we were emboldened, and men in the room began to approach us and listen to what we had to bring to the table. We gave each other a sense of self, strength, and authority, and that is something that I think the men in the room took for granted. Do you think they've ever needed such support? Or do you think their gender constitutes this for them immediately? It's possible that as soon as I walked into that room, the men in orchestrating positions decided that I was not their target audience. And from this moment, I could have been denied important exposure and opportunity all before I had even spoken. I think there are some crucial lessons for the audience to learn. Number 1, acknowledge and challenge bias. Think back to that example of me at West Croydon bus station, 4 p.m. on a Friday. But this time, imagine that I'm with my Black male friends. Would you assume that we were loitering? Up to no good. I want you to know that these assumptions do not define me, but they do define your mindset. Your assumptions about innocent Black people, your fear. I want us to apply this to other situations. When we meet someone who doesn't fit our conventional archetype of what a leader should be, we shouldn't let our initial perceptions define them either. Number 2, redefine leadership. Alternatively, I want to suggest that we reframe our ideal of what a leader should look like. It'll be easier for us to create a space for the people that did not formally fit these images, such as us, women, to be the new leaders. The world should prepare for the women of the future because we make it. Number 3, support each other. After challenging our biases, we can begin to support one another as women. We have to challenge these because it will stop women just like me from accessing spaces that we have every right to be in. It will hinder our fight to be the woman that we want to see because the world is not ready for us. The world is not ready for me. Number 4, be the change. Everyone in this room has one thing that we undeniably share, and that is the fact that we all hold these ideals, these biases, unconscious or conscious. Studies by Harding Evans solicitors found that Black women face a significant pay gap compared to their white counterparts due to hiring and promotion biases. and a lack of representation in higher management, which leads to less influence on organizational change. Black women are less likely to be called for interviews, even though they have significant and equivalent qualifications and experience as their white peers, again, due to an immediate bias towards their skin color. We have to challenge these so that we can create a space where every woman, everywhere, feels as if she can achieve and succeed. Now finally, one last time, let's revisit that image of me at West Croydon bus station. It's 4 p.m. It's Friday. See me standing there. Hear my South London accent unashamedly punctuating the air. What thoughts come to your mind to describe me? For most, I assume that it's not empowered, leader, role model, strong. For most, I assume it is the exact opposite. So I want you to think about this and see if it changes anything for you. Imagine I was white. Imagine I was male. Imagine I spoke the received pronunciation of a boarding school male. Be honest, did it change anything for you? Should it? And if it did, then we are continuing to let the privilege that these individuals receive perpetuate in society while marginalizing those that don't fit into this expectation. If it did, are you even ready for me? In conclusion, our collective responsibility is to acknowledge and challenge bias. It is to redefine leadership. And only then can we break down the barriers that stop women just like me, just like you, from being the leaders that we want to see. Thank you.